I cordially invite present the written question, please.
Avasara Bhante and Venerable Sirs, for the 14th of January 2024 at Ripplewood Meditation Center, we received 28 entries for today. Before I begin the Q&A session for today, I would first like to seek permission from Bhante to present these entries.
Right, ready.
Entry number 1, on mindful walking. Before I began, I felt a bit tired, but as I started walking, I didn't notice it. I could hear the gravel underneath my shoes, but I let it go as if it was just in the background. As I was outside, it was early to get distracted, but I found the distractions as it helped me become mindful again and note that my mind had moved somewhere else. I knew I was mindful as I cannot remember half of the walk, only that I did it. Afterwards, I felt very relaxed and peaceful as I moved on to sitting.
Is that all? Yeah. So in the walking or sitting, whatever the posture, when you try to be mindful, distractions indicate your personality. So if you are cordial, if you are open to the distraction, you can see your subconscious. Distractions are not common for everyone. Some people get thoughts, some people distracted by sounds, some people by other bodily pains away from your primary object. So therefore, general tendency is to suppress distraction and get rid of distraction. So therefore, we never recognize them as such. In order to understand what is my subconscious, who am I? So therefore, next time when the distractions happen, just note them down. Whether it's distracted by a thought, daydreaming, fantasizing, bewilderment, or pains, or sounds. There may be some other visual hallucinations and sometimes sounds, mind-made sounds. So therefore, don't just throw away distractions. Just understand it, then you will see a pattern. That's the first day you are going to understand who am I. Distractions are just like when you put a cube of ice into water, only 1/10 is above water, and 90% is the underneath. There is a similarity in the Western psychology, the conscious and subconscious. Conscious part is that 1% that everyone can see and you know it, but subconscious comes whenever you become mindful. Whenever you are not distracted by the past, future, other people and other places, there is a chance for subconscious to come. That we call surfacing, or we call surfacing of our psychological wounds. We have a lot of psychological wounds suppressed. So they are coming whenever there are no new impingements, when there are no impulses, eye, ear, nose, tongue. So therefore, whenever we go into pay attention, just the breath, that is very neutral, that is repetitive, and then the subconscious will come. There is a pattern, that is a simple theme. So therefore, next time when these things happen, just try to be jot them down, note them down, and you will understand who am I. And many are happening in walking than sitting. It is not a norm. So therefore, go prepared for, or don't, without suppressing, what are the distractions. Good.
Second entry for mindful sitting. I found mindful sitting more difficult than mindful walking. It was easy at the start as I was already in the right state of mind and my position was comfortable, but my neck began hurting a lot. Because of this, I could feel more pains in the rest of my body. It took a while for me to find a comfortable position, but once I did, it was a lot easier. I focused on my breathing and eventually I fell asleep. It was easier to focus on my breathing as I became more relaxed and tired.
So if I am to draw a diagram, the middle is the breath. One side is agitated mind, the other one is sleepy mind. Agitated means too much of energy, scattered mind. And the other one is the slimy, congealed mind, sloth and torpor, the sleepy mind. Mindfulness on the primary object is in the center. So this is the first time maybe we are attentive to the center, and then these two are just like a seesaw. Sometimes agitated mind, sometimes the sleepy mind. So both, if you go prepared, just like the last report, you can understand that indicates you are living. That indicates you are not dead. You are not sleepy. You are not unmindful. So these are the things to say, I am not dead, I am not sleeping, I am not unmindful, because even the sleepiness is under the light of mindfulness. The first time you dig a tunnel into your unconscious. So that sleepiness, early signs are very, very interesting. That's very psychological. Psychiatrically you can understand, but you can understand only your subconscious. So go prepared for agitated mind as well as for the sleepy mind. That means you are progressing. Good.
Entry number 3. So mindful walking. Primary object was the way each part of the foot made contact with the ground. As I began walking, I was able to maintain my mind on the walking for the majority of 30 minutes, feeling different movements with the legs. Whenever I was aware of the mind wandering, I brought it back to the feet. At one point, I was aware that I was walking, but unable to pinpoint a specific tactile sensation. This led me to feel empty, and I found it difficult to keep my eyes open, feeling sleepy, in a trance-like state. And mindful sitting. Primary object was chest moving with breath. I found it difficult to maintain the mind on the breath for more than 2 breath cycles. I was feeling points of pain in the legs. I decided to stop fighting the mind and purposely bringing back the mind to these pains. After about 30 seconds, I identified more than 10 points. I started to focus on each point individually. Each one I focused on, the pain slowly began to reduce. I was able to do this for 3 pain points before my mind began to wander again.
So in the walking meditation, it says, while walking, mind wander off and again come back to primary object. That we call way back home. Your home is your primary object, walking, left leg and right leg. And wandering may be, as I mentioned, thoughts, pain, sounds, whatever may be. But mind is as if it is wandering off, like a monkey mind. There is a natural tendency for that mind to come back. But we are worrying about wandering mind. We are never happy about coming back mind. That's a kind of a endowment or gift in meditation. Let the mind to say kites, no harm. See how it is coming back. But when it comes to the sitting, pain is the distraction, but the pain you some or the other tackle, again mind wander off. It never come back to primary object. So if you are looking at your walking and sitting in terms of way back home, from the wandering mind to primary object, it's a unique trip. In the Western psychology, Western analysis and the neuroscientists, they have found 2 steps. First is understanding I am not in mindfulness. My mind is wandering. That means you understand unmindfulness. And understanding that, coming back to the primary object is the second step. Imagine if there is no primary object, mind is ever wandering. Object to object, but as far as there is a pivotal point, as far as there is a benchmark, mind whenever understand I am not mindful, there is a reference point. That's the greatest thing the Buddha introduced for the mindful people. But the thing is, many are not appreciating it because they are not undergone a lot of interviews and got the clarification. So next time, let the mind to wander freely. That's a very good relief. It's a catharsis. It is wrath is going out. But when coming back, it's a birthright of human beings. Animals, they don't have. Ghosts, devas, brahmas, they don't have this opportunity. But we mindful people, from today onward to the death, Whenever mind is roaming around, wandering, bewilderment, don't worry. See the way back home. The day you can report, you are opening a new windows, you are getting a turning point in your meditative life. We are moving.
Entry number 4, sitting meditation. I used a more systematic approach to my sitting meditation today, starting by becoming aware of the sensations I feel in my lower body, then the rise and fall of my chest, and then letting my attention fall on my breath flowing in and out through my nose. Happy to report I managed 6 consecutive breaths with complete awareness. However, when thoughts arose, I was unsure whether passively observing the initial thought without engaging and waiting for the mind to clear and return to the breath was the most effective approach, or whether actively forcing my attention back to my breathing is the better approach.
Yeah, that this report is telling it is not only 2, there are 6 consecutive breathings. And then when you are observing thoughts, without worrying, you can see thoughts never happen accidentally. It has 3 bells. First bell, second bell, third bell, then only the wandering happen. So therefore, if you thin slicing of time, you see even wandering mind is happening according to the law of nature. But if you are hating it, or if you are not aware of it, or you say, while I am meditating, mind wandered off and kind of thing. But it is not so. So therefore, understanding the early signs of the wandering mind is the second part of understanding the way back home. First of all, you have to understand the way back home. And then when the mind becomes skillful, it says not only way back home, you can trace way out home also. So when these things happen, there's no place for tension. There's no place for frustration. Because everything is accounted for. You have a bookkeeping. And later you will find everyone is the same. I am not a special person. These things are happening in a law of the order, law of the nature. So other religions, they say it is the will of the God. Or omnipotent, omnipresent God. But the Buddha says, leave it is like that, no problem. But if you can see how it is going out, there are 3 bells. Before coming back, some precursors are there. Early signs are there. That's the way we understand, or I understand, who am I. So therefore, this is furtherance, little furtherance of the last report. That means, of course, 2 people, 2 personals, but try to trace them back without prejudgmental idea of wandering minded bad, coming in something and going out something. They are law of the nature. You are just a distance observer, and everything become fruitful, everything become gainful whenever you are reporting. If you do not report, whatever the meditation, you are not endowed with results. So that is why this 1 hour we are taking about learning reporting. This somewhat advanced reporting, good.
So entry number 5, mindful walking. My primary objective of this walking session was to keep track of my left and right feet landing on the ground. My awareness of this objective lasted 31 steps, roughly 2 rounds of walking on my path, before my attention shifted to focus on the fly which landed on my nose. I tried to focus on the fly's movements on my nose instead of instinctively swatting it away. It quickly flew off my face and went to torment someone else, and I returned my attention back to my feet. My awareness shifted away from my primary object for a few times after that, and I noted those shifts, swiftly returning my attention back to my feet. The session ended shortly after.
Yeah, still good. Whenever passing 20 or 30 steps, that means you can encounter the turning point. If the only people can do 2-3 steps, you are not qualified enough. But it is going with this way and that way. So the turning point is special challenge. Because your attention is not single linear relationship. It's a kind of a complex relationship. And you are more vulnerable to see things, hear things, and the other scattering of your attention to the other places. So it is not a mistake. It's a part and parcel of the lesson. So therefore, if you know it, before while reaching the end, you know, now I am to turn, and lot of chances are there for the wandering minds to happen. But if you go prepared, you can have a transparency. Or that preparedness is called immunity. That's called the vaccine. Knowing that you are going to a disease area, first you get the vaccine, then you have antibodies. Like us, if you go prepared, it's a very good stepwise development. Good.
Entry number 6. I practice mindful sitting. I started off by focusing on my breath and feeling how my chest was rising and falling as I was inhaling and exhaling. Before I started mindful sitting, I was feeling tired and sleepy. As I was trying to focus on my breath, I started to fall asleep and would then immediately get back up. I would not feel my head moving down when I was falling asleep, but I would feel it when I wake back up. When doing mindful sitting, I could focus on most breaths I took, whereas if I was not being mindful and was focusing on my other day-to-day activities, I wouldn't pay much attention to my breath. After mindful sitting, I was still quite tired, but felt more calm since I was in a quiet room.
So this is complaint is about sleepiness, but there were some reports while doing in-breath and out-breath sounds, thoughts and distraction can happen. But the question is, when the sleepiness happens or sound, thoughts and other thing happen, that the breath stops. While you are in the sleeping, you can have a quick check. While mind is wandering, mind is sleeping, mind is daydreaming, mind is with the sounds. What is happening in the breath? Who is breathing? Who is wandering? Is there two people? Or breathing happen in autopiloting mode? Breathing happen in the natural order. So, if you will understand it, when the wandering mind happens, if you are sharp enough with the quick wit to see the breathing, that is how the breathing happens when you become enlightened. Breathing is completely effortless. So, your main task is let the mind to send kites, no harm. Being in that place, just look at the breath. Walking also you can do it. In Sinhala we call hora police karna. Let the mind run and be in there, look at the breath, just like you send a satellite, and being in the satellite, you look back at the earth. Completely different view. Please try. We are moving.
Entry number 7 for walking meditation. I began my walking meditation by setting my eyes on a fixed point, which was the end of my path. As I started walking, I felt the heel of my left foot land ahead, followed by the toes, then the same with the right foot. During this observation, my mind kept wandering off to unrelated thoughts, so I decided to observe a different aspect of my walking, which was feeling the weight decrease and increase as I lifted up and put down each foot. I was able to observe this longer than my original observation before my thoughts started to wander again. There was many sounds such as other people walking on the gravel and cars coming in and out. I noticed these sounds and returned to observing the weight of my legs. After the session had finished, I still tried to remain mindful as I entered the seating meditation.
So when you are walking, your power line from the heel to the knees and the hip, and from the hip onward, the shock, the hit of the ground is going through the spinal cord to the atlas, the core, this thing, and on top of that only head is there. So each time the straightened power line is transmitting some kind of a indication you are not dead, you are not sleeping, you are not unmindful. And when it is shifting to the middle part of the leg and to the ball and to the tip of the toes, the power line is slowly pushing forward, and then the other leg is ready to take from the heel. So this is being depicted by the Buddha as a cartwheel. When it is rotating, rolling, the one radius by one radius take the power, and then shifting into the hub. And from the hubward onward, the saloon or the car is moved, or the cart is moved. So likewise, upper part of the body is our cart. And the legs are moving in such a way, the power line transmission is so smooth. Not a single machine on the earth have that kind of a synchronize. So there, first you have to understand the left leg and right leg, and then you have to understand the PowerPoint shape difference, and then accordingly the weight is shifted to the hip. Hip is the center. From here to toe, here to head, and the heel exactly the same. There is Da Vinci pictures, he recognized it. And he put a lot of line diagrams to say how much the body is being balanced and the working, and simple action of walking is very good to understand what the kind of synchronize we have. Shifting, my weight is now 63 to 5 kilograms. Shifting from 65 kilograms from to the other and then to the other, we don't feel 65 kilograms. So smooth. So a person like this can advance observation how the touching point changes and how the power line happens and the shifting of the weight happens. So then you are not the person walking. You can feel like as if someone is observing you. Or we call effortless walking. And there is no tiredness. But understand the pace, and then the body machine, the skeleton basically will synchronize. You can have a complete full membership as a distance observer. Continue, please.
Entry number 8 was on mindful walking. Before the activity, I felt restless and agitated. This was the second or third session of the day. During the activity, I began feeling distracted, my mind full of passing thoughts. I mitigated this thinking by imagining the thoughts as pieces of wood on a river, allowing them to pass by, observing them from the outside perspective, rather than engaging like I had in the past sessions. This mindful approach allowed me to clear my head and focus on the sensations I was experiencing in the present moment. As a result, my mind felt lighter and unnecessary thoughts of worry became infrequent. Furthermore, I felt like I had achieved a greater benefit from the task compared to previous sessions.
Yeah, the first few sentences it says, when I'm going, I was bored, I am tired like. That will happen when you become tired, retired. You become a no one. You become Avalangu Kaziak and mother monocoin again. That's that invalid coin. At the adolescence, you are finding a job and finding a girl or boy and having a family. You are so busy. But if you are given, now you have a rest, please rest. No, that's a torturing thing. In the Western countries, you are also in the same bloody shit. We going to the how do you call, retirement is psychological shock. And nothing to do. You are working and everything for that rest. Just to sit and just to walk. But when it is given, you are not ready. You are workaholic. So addicted. So that's why the Buddha says, give it in the very young age, middle age, and the old age. And there you can understand we are earning, but we are never utilizing it, specifically the freedom, specifically the rest, specifically the lack of a task. It's a crime. You can't. So therefore, be acquainted with doing nothing and fully observe, fully vigilant, fully diligent. Also do a simple task like walking, completely observing. Then there you can understand when you are given the long expected rest, you are not ready because of the bad habit of socialization. We are bad social beings. But when you are in Uma, here now I am, and you given the task, given the rest, given the retirement, it's a voluntary one we are doing, you can understand where are we. We are just chasing a carrot, like a donkeys. We are moving.
Entry number 9. Dear Bhante, when I'm doing my mindful walking, I tend to count my steps or verbalize left and right in my head. Often when I count or think of left and right, this is the only thought in my head I can synchronize the counting with the landing of my feet on the ground. Is this counting or left and right verbalizations okay to complete during the mindful walking practice?
So that is why when you go to the kindergarten level, the teacher will say letter A. And they will say, this is A. All the children have to say A. They can hear their voice, they can see the photos, and they say it is an apple. Then how A is using in the word apple. Likewise, you do it. At that time, it's verbalization. But when you acquainted with the alphabet, when you see the word having starting with A or something like that, you have nothing to verbalize. By looking at, you get it. So therefore, early part is, one way is verbalizing. Even regimentation in the army, throughout it says left, right, left, right, left, right. That is regimentation. So therefore, in the meditation, early part is regimentation. Then you let the body to do it, occasional verbalizing or counting. But later, when it becomes familiarized, when you become seasoned, you may do without that. There the mind is more relaxed. But this is a valid way, accepted way for the beginners. You may use it as far as it is useful.
Entry number 10. In today's walking meditation, I decided to walk barefoot on the stones outside the meditation hall. Just before starting, my mind was wandering everywhere, thinking about the past, present, and future. But from the moment I put my foot down on the stones, my mind rushed to the hurtful sensation. As the session went on, my feet adapted to the continual pain, and the focus shifted to the movement of the foot itself. From heel to sole to foot, the movement was repeated back and forth in a sort of rhythmic pattern, bringing the awareness to the touch points in the feet. After the walking meditation, the pain in my feet came back as the walking rhythm was broken, and my mind immediately started wandering again, until the beginning of the sitting session. In the sitting session, since I'm used to the routine at home, my mind knew where to go as soon as I got into the seated position. When practicing sitting meditation, I usually go to the breath as the focal point. Similar to the walking meditation, the continuing of the breath begins to form a rhythm that prevents most thoughts from interfering with the focus on the breath. Nearing the end of the meditation, as the bell rang, again the rhythm was broken, bringing back the wandering mind.
This is a fairly understanding wandering and not worrying, and again come back. Something like that. That means then you are ready to go to the next stage, where whenever the continuous observation, with or without interruption, you see the difference between left and the right disappears. The difference between in-breath and out-breath disappears. The difference between the rising and falling, if you are taken as the primary object, they just merging each other. So then it behave like a rhythm. So it's first you see the shape, and then you see the manners. And there are a lot of. So that will never happen if you just look at the breath and come back. You have to see series of breath cycles, series of left and right cycle in walking, and there is a rhythm. This is two-dimensional. When it's going further, there is a cycles, very agitated, unwanted, but still if you endure, go to the very calm states. So you think that your meditation is successful, now it's calming down. But if you keep it, that calmness again give a wave. And then you see it is unmindful and unsuccessful. No. This is the rhythmic cycle. And then again it become calm. Again it become agitated, like there is a third dimension. So therefore first we call that bare attention, just to be in breath and out breath, or rising and left and the right. But if you observe, there's a huge penetration, a depth, so much so you are away from the sensuous pleasure. You completely go deep, deep, deep into that. Then within your life, you understand, you sacrifice your sensuous world, the organ-related world, and then you are penetrating into your object, whether it is rising and falling, whether it is breath, or whether it is left and the right leg. And later you will understand even the distractions, thoughts, there is a rhythmic pattern. Sounds, there is a rhythmic pattern. Pains, there is a rhythmic pattern. So all these patterns, we call them that rheumatic pain, and then you are a sick person. If you observe, doctors are not happy. They are not special guys. They also have the same pattern. But they know how to tax us, how to write a prescription and get something. So therefore, when you understand this rhythmic pattern, first you see the linear relationship, and then the manners, and then you start to see the pattern. So therefore, you have to be with that particular object for a long time, and that's what we can't do in our busy life. But in a retreat like that, we can, even not without that depth, you can just understand there's another dimension into the life, and that no one can do for you. No one can teach you. Even the Buddha is not in a sphere. He only can give guidelines, encourage you. So therefore, this is a kind of a starting point for that kind of a depth. Please continue with the same timetable and the same attention.
Entry number 11, mindful sitting. Before completing mindful sitting, I felt relaxed, but I was aware that my thoughts were scattered. I had completed a few mindful walking and sitting sessions during the day and was starting to feel some fatigue. However, once I started mindful sitting, I focused on my breathing in and out and found that the scattered thoughts I had earlier started to disappear. What I felt different was that in previous sessions, I could only focus a few minutes before my mind wandered. Now, after being mindful of my breaths, I was able to forget about the sensual world and look inward. After completing mindful sitting, I felt a great calm in my mind. My scattered thoughts were no more, and I felt a great sense of peace. I hope with more practice I can reap more of the benefits of mindfulness. One thing I found difficult while completing the mindful sitting was the distractions in the room. The occasional fly or shuffle from someone in the room made it difficult to maintain my mindful sitting. However, for this session of mindful sitting, I found I was better able to return to mindful sitting than previous sessions. Working to better adjust to distractions and return to mindful sitting quickly is something I would need to improve on in the future mindfulness sessions.
Yeah, inside there are some slamming of the doors and the flies and kind of. Outside you bloody buggers are talking, chatting. That's a human sign, human sound. And being is young adults, I was not critical about, because at your age I am a bloody fool. I had no even the mindfulness. But human sound is the most nasty sound on earth. Only human can talk. And you all are socializing. How much a distraction, more than the flying, more than the slamming of the door. So therefore, internally you are not talking. I am very, very grateful. So go to the retreat, the report. It's a very good essay on relaxation and fatigueness. If you call it a fatigue, you are in a hell. If you recognize this as a relaxation, you are in heaven. Same thing. Same thing. You feel boring, monotonous, disinterest, fatigue. Sometimes I am completely relaxed, I am alone. What a blessing. So the Buddha says, both of them are just mind games. The day you understand everything as good, mano pubbangama dhamma, mano settha manomaya, manasache pasannena, bhasativa karotiva, tatona sukaman veti. But if you consider this as a fatigue, if you consider this as a boredom or sleepiness and the monotony, then you are torturing yourself. That is because of your labeling. That is because of your preconceived ideas. Treat both them as equal. The relaxation and the fatigue indicate mind is something inward. That changes what we call spiritual difference or turning point or our backbone of our personality. So therefore, don't give this is good, this is bad. Just let them happen. When they are creeping in, when they are coming in, we give a label, then we start to suffer or to entertain. So if you have a choiceless awareness, when it's happening with the don't label it as the relaxation or calmness or nothing. Don't relax it as agitation, worrying and kind of just see. The choiceless awareness is the mantra applicable for everything. So early part of the report is giving enough raw material for someone to go prepared. Both of them are the same. It depends on your labeling, your upbringing, your preconceived ideas that will be revealed in choiceless awareness. So choiceless awareness is another synonym for mindfulness or bare attention. So you non-judgmental, non-reaction. These are the supreme qualities for a human life. Earlier the better. Please try.
Entry number 12. Report is on walking meditation. Today I'm reporting on mindful walking experiences. The primary object of doing this activity was to be aware of the weight shift between the left and right legs when walking. Just before the activity, I prepared my body and mind to start walking by taking a deep breath. During the activity, I could feel the wooden floor under my feet. I could feel when the heel of one foot landed and the weight transferring on the outside border to finally push off to take the next step. I would feel the weight transfer from one foot to the other for a maximum of 20 steps. 80% of the time I was aware when I stopped walking and when I was turning around. My mind did wander many a times, and I forgave myself and gently brought it back to the stepping. One time my right foot was mid-step when I became aware again. When I'm not walking mindfully in my day-to-day life, walking feels mechanical and very rarely feel my primary object. After the walking, I was more aware of my joints and muscles, and I could sit for a long time without changing my posture. For sitting meditation, my primary object of the mindful sitting was to feel the rising and falling of the chest and / abdomen. This was challenging as I could only notice it 5 times consecutively. During those 5 times, I could feel the expansion and contraction of my tummy muscles. I often fell asleep during most of today's sitting sessions.
Yeah, yesterday I saw Walpola. Is it available today? No. Sri Lanka husband? Is it available today? No. So he's a guy, he came from Sri Lanka and he had some diabetes or something kind of thing. It happened him to cut off the leg. And every family was crying and I also was thought, what an unlucky thing. So beforehand he started mindfulness. After cutting the leg, he participated 3 retreats so far. Last time, this time, and even here. So first retreat in Gippsland, he explained, when I am walking, the mechanical leg, the plastic and the iron leg, can feel sand, can feel grass, can feel everything. And when I am sleeping, then only I know I am an artificial leg. Otherwise, I am completely with the normal leg. So one day, he told, I removed the leg because otherwise it is hitting each other and kind of thing. So without knowing that, when you climb down from the bed, he keep that cut leg in the ground, thinking that's a full leg. He toppled down. He says all the pains in the muscles, which is already removed, the brain is reading. So it is not necessary to have the body. So always you can feel. But when you have the leg, definitely it is obvious because nervous sense, whenever touching, you can feel it. But even without that, your body is such. So there it was this time he gave furtherance into the report and I was so happy. So you can see when we have some children, we are asking them to walk in a half wall like that. And then walk closed eyes. When you're walking with the closed eye, they are very serious to touch it, not from looking from the eye, but they touch the ground, otherwise they will topple. And then we ask them to go backward. And then the heel is not the first place to touch. Then you are touching the toes and then slowly come back to the heel. And then the other leg will come and do. And what about walking backward, closed eyes? Do it, will you? We have that sessions. Otherwise we put a rope, walking along the rope, forward, backward, closed eyes forward, closed eyes backward. So you can understand when you are closing eyes, our sensitivity is double-fold or triple-fold. Then it is touching. So likewise, when you are starting normal forward walking in the walking meditation, you learn. This body is full of body knowledge. As far as the ego, self-centeredness there, your walking is artificial. If there is no I, if there is no self-centered monitoring, if there is no self-centered, just like beauty queens are walking in the parades, I don't know how the females are looking at it. We males, we have high-resolution cameras, and we go there and catch this thing. Because of ego and that conceited idea, they are in a complete different world. But when there is you are not there, either you are wandering or your leg is cut off, then there is a kind of a walking, and that is what we have never experienced. So mindfulness is giving these openings for you to do trials and trial in forward walking, backward walking, closed eyes, open-eyed, and then you can understand. So for that you must be not in a rush to run to the train. If it is so, you have very short time. You have to keep on running. But practice it, and there you can understand. To experience walking meditation, you must not walk. In dreams, we are walking. Things are happening. So likewise, to understand the mechanism, how the mind is working, you have to do it again and again. Whenever the distortion happen, whenever distraction happen, whenever bewilderment happen, don't think it is a negative. It's a kind of another question paper, another challenge, and that preparedness for this diversification is called vipassana. If you are not doing any diversification, only do forward and backward walk, forward walk in the flat ground and the straight line, that is more samatha. We start with samatha and let the mind to do varietal entertainment. So this is a kind of a little bit open essay. Please let them happen. Whatever the mishap, whatever the challenge happen, it's a new door opening or window opening, you to gather more information. So that preparedness is the ultimatum decisive factor. If you are prepared, we call Boy Scouts or Girl Guides. If you are unprepared, you are beasts, animals, reptilians. So understand how much time you are a human and how much of time you are just a beast. Your body is just controlled. That agenda is someone's. You don't know. But in walking, you can understand, but it's understanding happen painfully slow. I am very happy that you have taken this trial and doing. These reports indicate the sign of progress. We are moving.
Entry number 13. I am accounting for my experiences during walking meditation. I was quite restless prior to my walking meditation session, given the new environment I was practicing mindfulness in. As I began mindful walking, I began to focus on the sensations by my feet as I took a new step. I felt the warmth of the floor and could even feel the texture of the floorboards I walked across. This mindfulness lasted for roughly 5 minutes until I became distracted momentarily with a rabbit hopping in the distant grass area. I noted this distraction and tried to bring my attention away from the outside world and instead tried to focus on the act of walking and try to pinpoint the different areas of the foot, the toes, the sole, and the heel. While it did take a few minutes to bring my attention back, I was able to regain my mindfulness and continue the session. I then carried this mindfulness to the sitting meditation session. I find that I'm less distracted in the sitting meditation sessions compared to mindful walking. And I'm also able to catch myself becoming distracted much faster when practicing mindful sitting. I try to focus on the breath, visualizing the flowing in and out of the air from my nose. What I do find difficult and ultimately distracting is the pain I feel in my legs. It often arises 10 minutes into the session and lingers unless I move positions. This can be a little frustrating and is probably the most common source that pulls my focus away from my breathing. I hope that with more regular sitting meditation practice, I'll be able to better develop my skill to hold the pain and try to continue my practice without focusing too much on the pain. In this particular session, I kept moving my legs to alliterate the pain and was able to bring my focus back onto my breathing before the pain would arise. My endurance of the pain did improve in later sessions, and I was able to focus on my breathing for longer. I look forward to practicing sitting meditation tomorrow in the hopes that I'll be able to observe my breathing rather than the pain more mindfully.
Yeah, the rabbit will be a distraction. Just see whether rabbit is distracted. Today I was taking the breakfast. Just other side of the window, maybe the same rabbit or someone else from him was eating. So I am distracted from eating, but I was looking at the guy, he was not distracted. The rabbits are not come to distract your mindfulness. You bloody fools get distracted. But the rabbit not distracted. So therefore, no sound distract you. Only you distract sounds. No pain distract you. Only you distract pain. Because at that time of pain, there are some sounds. There are some thoughts. There is your primary object. You only need the pain. Masochist. And called sadistic. So much of things are there. But you select pain and talking and writing and beginning, the middle and the end of the pain. What the hell, you can at that time listen or see the rabbit. No. No. Pain is the main thing because you disturb the pain. So when we are sitting in the same ground, some people are distracted of something, other people are from the others. But if you are expressing our ideas in the common interviews, we can understand, we select our distraction. That is our personality trait. Accordingly, we write stories, we call storytelling or fabrication. But while in the pain, if you have a radical reflection to see what is happening to the breath, what is happening to the sound right around, what is happening to the background and foreground thoughts, inner thoughts. No, because the pain is the most excruciating, disturbing thing. That is the only thing I need. I am making stories. So rabbit never distract you. You bloody fellows are distracting rabbit, but they are very mindful. They are not. So therefore take this as a challenge. And these challenges are not meant for our distraction. We are waiting for some distractions. That's why we are happy to see action-packed films. Imagine someone is coming and filming me, 3 hours I'm going to show in the next video, who is going to look at it? You slam the video and tell him, bloody hell, that same monkey is sitting for 3 hours, what is to look? But instead the father is raping his own daughter. Everyone will look. There will be so much of hits. Who is the uncultured person, the creator or doer? No, you bloody fool. There are a lot of things to look. You are looking at the worst thing or happiest thing. So that's a cancer. But no harm. It won't make any permanent damages. Anytime you can revert back and see, while that is happening in the conspicuous and prominent way, of course it is distracting, you can look at what is the primary object, what is my body, how are the thoughts, other sounds, they are always there. So therefore don't distract rabbits, we are moving.
Entry number 14, mindful walking. I chose a wooden footpath outside for walking. Walked up and down a few times. My foot was heavy on the floor and I could see my weight shifting from one side to another. Focus was on how my foot touching the floor, how toes are working to push to move from one step to another. My focus was moved to a sound of the lawnmower at the distance. That moment I realized that I lost the movement of my foot. Again, I was aware of my foot movement, and after a while I only felt like a sticking and removing something on a surface, and felt lighter. I did not have any control, and it was barely a movement. For mindful sitting, I closed my eyes and scanned the body slowly. Main focus was on my breath. Breathing was heavy and could feel the inhale and exhale. Watching it more closely made it lighter and felt like air was going through a bottomless pipe. Could not see the end of the disappearing breath. Once I noticed the breath had stopped and was aware of it. But being more aware of it slowly, saw that it was not stopped, but the breathing slowly, but not noticeable at all.
Also, that is what the lesson we are getting from the singing bowl. I am going to ring. Today very little time, but I like to have some kind of a fun. So you are going to listen the sound wave. So if you are closing your eyes, it will be much dramatic. But even the open eye you can do. And I am giving a high-pitched sound and it is slowly disappearing. You have to see the end of the sound. I hope I give enough instructions. We will anyway try. So if you like, gently close your eyes and listen to this sound. Okay, thank you. So when it is lingering, when it's tapering off, what is the end of the sound? So if now you practice once, if you give the second wave, third wave, amidst of all the sound, you develop a kind of a skill, if you got enough instructions, still the sound is maintaining. You start to complain about the lawn mower and the kind of thing. Soon that mind goes there, sound appear like disappeared. And usually it is not. So day by day, you go to the deep, deep layers of the sound, then only Dibbasota Jnana, that clairvoyance can happen. Distractions doesn't matter. You can trace along the sound wave. Exactly you can trace along the end of the in-breath, end of the out-breath, end of the desire, end of the hatred, end of the pain. So it is never explored. Because our senses are working with gross areas, we have never tried how much we can trace them to the disappearing part. This is called nirodha, or disenchantment, or disappearing part. That is happening in only one dimension, here, now, I am. When in the people, we are utterly distracted. So therefore, this is trying to see the end of the in-breath and out-breath. It is like an open end pipe. How long you can continue? More you practice, more you will see the cross-breath to nothing. And then again the out-breath start. And when it comes to the peak, and again disappearing. So when that happens, that the whole universe is that. That's why the Buddha says, if you come inward, you can see the whole world. Not by going around the world. Please continue and try.
Entry number 15, mindful walking. Just before mindful walking, I was restless. Therefore, I started mindful walking with first 2 rounds thinking that I'm walking, not sitting or anything else, just walking. Then I started to focus on touch points when walking as heel, sole, and toe. When I was doing that for about a few minutes, I noticed that by the time one of my foot completely touches the floor, the other foot is ready for the next step, touching only the toes. After that, my mind starts to wander between past and future events. So I was observing my thought after that for quite some time. But I was able to bring back my mind towards walking before the end of that session. I did the mindful walking outside and inside both, but I felt I could mindfully walk for a longer duration without daydreaming inside the hall. Mindful sitting. Since mindful walking was done before mindful sitting, I felt calm and prepared. During this, I tried to focus the path of my breathing. When I inhale, the chest cavity moves a little forward and then upwards, filling the lungs through air traveling inwards. When I exhale, the lungs deflate, the chest cavity goes back to the original position, and air goes out. During mindful sitting, I could feel my body either leaning forwards or backwards in different instances. I also fell asleep. Upon realizing that, I readjusted my position and start all over again. Likewise, I had to start over and over again several times during each mindful sitting. I felt calm than the beginning of the mindful sitting after the end.
The first sentences carry the secret. I was distracted, but still I started walking. So that is what you call the prepared mind. Many people think I am distracted, this is not the time for walking, this is not the time for meditation, so they could do some more distracting things. But if you know that my mind is not happy, but I am going to do it, that preparedness gives the completely different picture. And once the mind is seasoned in walking, and if then we go to the sitting, that prepared mind is there. So therefore you are immunized before going to the diseased area. So prepared mind or be prepared is to what you call samma ditthi, or your correct view. So younger generation, they have enough energy. So they have to be not skillful in that subject and this subject? The preparedness. That preparedness is called vigilance, the diligence, the mindfulness, wakefulness, and apamada, sati is in Sinhala or Pali language. So it's an endowment of us. We are not giving something in the retreat. You never catalyzing it. You never implementing it. So you become a dull the people. That does not indicate that your preparedness and the basic seed, basic potential and possibilities lost. Never. Any time you start to be prepared, you are enlightened. So we are trying, catalyzing to make you all be prepared, and that is happening only in front of a challenge. So challenges are the teacher. Please go prepared for any challenge or try to be a boy scout or girl guide. We are moving.
Entry number 16, mindful walking. My main objective before practicing in the activity was to observe the way the body makes contact with the wooden floor, and in doing so, make note of the pathavi of the two objects coming into contact, as well as the teja I felt, such as the wideness or hotness I felt at different times. Usually, I start off my walking by putting my heel, sole, and toes, and in my head reciting birth, life, death. However, after a while, I felt that this was only allowing me to concentrate on the walking and not be mindful. Afterwards, I observed and was mindful of how my body changed positions as it walked. At one time, I felt I was outside my body, observing it from afar. The thoughts, however, were restless and continued coming at each point that I stopped to turn. I grounded myself and brought my attention to my standing. I would then walk, observing mindfully as I changed and moved across the floor. The difference I saw when walking mindfully was that I was aware of my foot making contact and my muscles' movement as I walked, whereas usually I would walk mindlessly, only thinking about the next action. Mindful sitting. My primary object originated to be being aware of my thought flow as well as my breathing. However, as I continued being mindful, I noticed that my mind did become blank at instances. I noticed that this occurred in the time period when I stopped my thought flow from mindlessly going and brought it back to my breathing. In 1 second or less period, I saw that there was no thought occurring in my mind. Once I observed as such, I tried to grasp onto it, to break it down and investigate what was occurring. I found that at one point, I nearly held onto it for 5 seconds. It was like a sea of black void with nothing in it. However, as soon as I observed that I had no thoughts, then that in itself became a thought, and I was no longer in a blank state of mind. Afterwards, I tried to hold on to it a little longer, but it was always for 1 second, and when I held my breath at the same time. I did notice, however, that it was a lot of light in front of my eyes, that this nothingness became a yellowish light. I knew I was mindful because I was able to observe my thought process occurring while keeping in mind that there were only thoughts, and each time bring my mind back to breathing concentration. I find that my mind runs aimlessly when trying to concentrate on a task, and each time I bring it back. Any advice on this?
Early part it says how the body is working or moving. Some of the movements are voluntary, some of them are involuntary. For example, when you are in a sleep, you move yourself. Imagine a mother bathing and treating and everything, first baby, and put into sleep and observing. Just there are some kind of body knowledge movements, and mother is so closely observing, like as you can yourself see yourself, let the body to move and just observe. Some of them are voluntary muscles, some of them are involuntary. So both of them you consider as my movements if you are not mindful. More and more you mindful, you will understand almost everything is body knowledge happening due to my wrong attribution. I think I moved. So it's a very great lesson. And the second part, it says that not the breath, not the beginning, the middle, and the breath. Now see the blankness, split second, sometimes occurring again and again, sometimes longer time. You are now observing the beginning, the middle, and the end of the blank, but no thought blanks have no time dimension. You can't say 1 second, 2 seconds. Seconds and time is available only to the egotistic idea or wrong mind. When you come to the blank, no space, no time. That's the point where we have the doorway for the opening, but naturally we avoid it because of our civilization. Civilization is a cancer. But this is a door opening, but only bold people, only prepared people, only those who have merits take this challenge. But their parents are not happy. Society is not happy. Your ethics do not happy. Your moral value, no chance for the emptiness. But when it going to happening again and again, go prepared. Slowly it will be expanding. And that is the liberation Buddha prescribed. That is the lack of tension Buddha prescribed. Let the escape from the time and space dimension appear like earlier midst of the big tapestry here and there. No thoughts, no the blank. But ultimately whole tapestry will become a blank. So let that happen. Facilitate it please. That's my remark.
Entry number 17, mindful sitting. When doing mindful sitting, the initial few minutes were slightly difficult as numerous thoughts and ideas kept appearing in my mind. However, I simply noted them and let them pass. I continued to focus on every step of the inflow and outflow of my breath. At a particular point, I noticed a certain shift in my breathing. It felt more controlled and deeper. In this state, I was able to block out minor sounds around me and also eradicate the sharp pain in my leg. As I came for each sitting session, I tried to extend the amount of time that I was able to maintain this state. I was only able to remain in this state for at most 5 to 10 minutes until my mind became distracted by the sounds around me.
Yeah, the distraction of pain and distraction of sounds. But you know your benchmark. You know your pivotal point. Whenever possible, come back to the pivotal point. But pain and sounds are prominent, be with it. Don't try to remove. Don't try to react. They are carrying a message. So go by them. Whenever time permits, you have assigned emergency assembly point. Whenever forced evacuation happens, you know where to go in a danger. So Buddha is appointing you. Unmindful people, they don't have a point on point. They don't have a pivotal point. They are always in a mess. So therefore, meditating people, pain sounds are there. Whenever it is not there, just be respectful for your primary object and continue progressing.
Entry number 18. Venerable Bhante, my reflections are as below. Mindful walking. Started walking by keeping track of the left and right. Noted the heaviness and then observed the areas of touching the floor. Felt heat and then coldness on the same area at one point. After a few minutes during walking, I do not feel any sensations, but only note that there are touch points and the walking is happening automatically. The mind becomes very relaxed and the eyes are almost closed, but still gives a vision enough to turn. I have been practicing since 2020. Venerable Bhante, is it correct to just observe anything during the latter part of walking? It feels like bliss, but I do not notice anything other than the fact there is walking, but I'm happy with the feeling. Please correct me if this is not right. And mindful sitting for today. Sat and observed, here now I am, and watched all the sensation arising and disappearing. After some time, the attention went to the breath. Then it moved to thoughts, brought it back, and then watched the breath become light from heavy after that point. Looking back, I cannot prescribe what happened. It was a mixture of breath, thoughts, pain arising, disappearing, and at the end it was like a blotted painting. Venerable Bhante, please advise and let me know if anything needs correction. Wishing you good health, strength to carry on this amazing work of giving the Sati light, and may you attain Nirvana in this life itself.
I wish to listen to the early part again because some thoughts came and disappeared. So now 1 hour finished. So the tuning off.
The question, Bhante, or the whole
early part, yeah.
Just the question?
Walking part.
The whole part of that? Yep.
The part of it, then again the mind will recover.
Started walking by keeping track of the left and right. Noted the heaviness.
Good. And that means after a while, you become non-judgmental, you become choicelessly be aware, then you can't understand what is happening. You know grossly you are walking, whether it's good or bad, with a pain or pleasurable, because you are not judgmenting. You don't see boundaries, you are choicelessly be aware. So then onward, just like a aeroplane going on the runway and taken off, you can't feel the shocks. Now it's airborne. So when it happens, you can see ego become less and less defined. Ego becomes scattered off, but smoothly walking can take place. So this conceptually we call choicelessly be aware, evenly suspended attention, suspended decision, non-judgmental, non-reaction. Definitely at the beginning, it is not so. But if you are in the correct path, slowly you take off the ground. And after taking off the ground, at least 100 meters, it has to climb, then only you can put into autopiloting mode, according to the pilot's etiquettes. But till it come up to the 100 meters, everyone must listen to the captain. Even the crew must be seated, belt must be fastened, because that's the most critical part in the plane, and the landing. Then onward, the pilot can go and sleep, can give it to the co-pilot. So like that part is the difficult part. Now this indicates there are some early parts of these improvements. Continue the same, you will gain more inferential knowledge as you progress. Good.
Entry number 19. The activity that I practiced was mindful walking. Prior to mindful walking, I felt a bit drowsy and tired, as if I was less perceptive and my senses were dulled. As I engaged in it, I felt that these feelings of tiredness fade away, and I knew I was doing this activity mindfully, as I became more perceptive of what was occurring in my immediate surrounding. I began to hear more acute noises, such as the rain in the gutters, and feel the different parts of my feet touching the ground. I realized I was doing this much more mindfully than the first session of mindful walking in the morning, because I was sensing things that I did not in the morning. After concluding the mindful walking, I felt much more awake than I did prior to it. When doing mindful sitting, my focus of my mindfulness was on my posture. Prior to my mindful sitting, I realized that as my posture curved in, I began to feel the pain in my upper back. So during my mindfulness, I focused on this point to identify when I was slouching forward. This aided me in being mindful of how often it was when my mind started wandering, did my posture deteriorate?
Whatever the happening things, forward thought, backward thoughts, inner thoughts, sounds, pain, and if you choicelessly be aware, no one distract you. But if you select, this is the distracting thing, then you start storytelling and fabricating. But not to be judgmental is not a single task. Very difficult. So by practicing, by mistakes, still repetitive practicing is called humbleness. It's called the innocence. Then you gain how to look at something from a distance, non-judgmental, choicelessly be aware. These things are happening. Nothing to worry. So it is observed in the early part of the reports. So be prepared not to be engaged, not to be judgmental, not to be choosy, choiceless to be aware.
Entry number 20, reporting mindful experience. I practiced mindful walking today before I did my session on mindful walking. I felt lethargic and a bit weary. However, as I started walking, I developed a rhythm with my walking. In my mind, I continually registered my left and right feet moving after each other, the sound of each step and the impact it left on my heel and toes. Before this feeling, I wasn't truly aware and was often distracted or preoccupied with other thoughts. My mind was wandering, but when I found that rhythm, even if it was only for 5 or 6 steps, I felt a clearer perception of my surroundings. This clarity anchored my mind, allowing it to stay clear of unnecessary thoughts and instead perceive entirely those few steps forward.
Yeah. So this also starting telling that his mind is tired and wearied, but still continue walking. Ultimately, it will become a tonic. You understand the walking meditation energizes you. Your life battery get charged. And then onward, you are a different person. So, being it is tiring and monotonous and wearied and exhausted, if you stop it, you will go to another wearing thing, another tiring thing. So still it is continuing, human beings not respecting. But the gods and the Brahma, they are paying so much of respect. Even it is boring, even it is tasteless, even it is less dramatic. How does he do it? What's the motivation? That is what you call the faith. That's what you call the non-distracted mind. So these distractions and others, just a litmus paper or like a acid test. So from there only you will understand the forbearance, the sustainability. So these are the qualities quite lacking on the today's society. But we are full of that if you are practicing mindfulness. So good report.
Entry number 21, mindful walking. I started mindful walking counting steps up and down. I took 30 steps and turned with another 3 steps. After a few rounds, I started focusing as left foot and right foot. I started noticing wet grass, uneven ground, debris on the ground crushing between my foot. I noticed my foot was dragging on the grass, so I fixed up my walking pattern, so it felt easier to walk. I managed to mindfully walk up to 10 steps. For mindful sitting, I started with looking at my body, then started to focus on breathing in and out. Eventually, I stopped saying from my mind, breathing and breathe out. I was looking at it mindfully. I was able to continue as for a few minutes. Sometime mind started to wander, but I was able to bring it back to my breathing. I felt much calmer after this activity.
Yeah, whenever the distraction happen, just wait. Mind will naturally come back to the primary object. If you're observant, you will be rejuvenated. And you have to behave like a newly born baby or a beginner. And then again start. Again wandering. Again come back. So when that happens, if you can see the whole cycle, there's a kind of a rejuvenation. Senility is the other side. Rejuvenation happen and you are supposed to develop beginner's mind. So that's the opposite of arrogance. opposite of, or rather it is the innocence. We are just newly born children, but if you are not assuming like that, if you are considering what the hell that all the time mind is wandering and I can't do it and like give up, you will start senility. That is what you call the all crock. So try to be the beginner's mind. So distractions are the thing going to give you this opportunity. Enough.
There's about 6 more entries to go. It's almost 2 o'clock though. I can continue.
So what is your judgment? Postponemental or increasing the time for question and answers? Good. All the reports are fairly well-oriented. All the 6 on the meditation reports or questions?
I think there is 2 questions and 6 experiences.
So we have already consumed the break.
Yes.
So therefore I would like to postpone it. I am very sorry to postpone it, but next day, tomorrow when you are starting, we'll start with that. And it is not to discourage to presenting reports. Some reports are a little too long. I never remarked, but that is the way you have to start. So therefore, accordingly, we are going to end up in the session. And tomorrow when we are starting, don't present all the already read questions tomorrow also. Sure? So tell them about, so throw away. Otherwise, if I am sleepy, I don't know, I will be doing something. I will answer in the different way. Then I will get caught. Therefore, don't ask the same question. That is the way you tackle me. So throw away everything. Tomorrow we are going to start with this 6. Thank you very much for the participation. I see the progress. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu.